Okay.
Prema, are you wanting to have questions at the end? Do you want to punctuate the talk with questions, put them in the chat? How would you like to have this go?
If there are any questions, you guys can put it in the chat, then we can address them at the end. I was hoping to do like a 45 minutes to 48 minutes presentation, so we have enough time for questions.
Perfect. All right. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Haley Preston, and I'm the Director of Desert Compost, and I'm the California Alliance for Community Composting Regional Coordinator in the Inland Empire region of California. And we are working with the Community Composting for Green Spaces grant. And with that, we are able to offer continued learning to our compost site project operators and our community partners and volunteers. So if this is your first introduction to our work, we hope we'll get to see you at one of our compost sites. And we've asked Prema Walker, who is a good friend of mine and also a fantastic trainer and permaculturist. We've asked her to give a talk today on Permaculture 101. So this is your introduction. And if you get more curious, you can always hang out with us at any of our compost sites across the region, and one of which is at Prema's house. It's Prema's Urban Farm. And I'll let her tell you more about that. But thanks for being here and looking forward to your talk, Prema.
Thank you, Haley. Good morning, everyone. As Haley introduced me, my name is Prema Walker, and I'm the founder and CEO of Prema's Permaculture and Composting, which is a practically sustainable business. Being a mechanical engineer, I focus on getting practical solutions to narrow pinching climate issues, socioeconomical issues. Today, I'm going to give an introduction to permaculture. This is something I learned 2 years ago locally, and I'm sharing my knowledge with everyone. And here goes my presentation. Okay, let me know when you guys can see the presentation. Okay.
Yep, looks good.
Looks good. Oh, thank you, Ali. I'm just now looking for where is the presentation button here. Okay, presentation mode. So permaculture is basically a journey towards sustainable and regenerative living, depending on where you are located and what restrictions do you have. This is not one size fits all solution. It is you understand the principles rather than facts only, and you adapt them as you need them to your situation. So why are we here? We are in this presentation because most of us are in California, and we are seeing things like wildfires, super heat waves, having drought, famine, all these things, food insecurities. So we gathered in this meeting today because each one of us are trying to address either one or multiple of these scenarios, which is mitigating the climate change, or how do we adapt to the climate change? Can we have more sustainable food systems rather than getting our food from far away places that are not even in California? Or how can we conserve most of the biodiversity at home and in other places? Or how can we reduce the waste? Or how can we educate ourselves and raise awareness to our families and friends? Each one of us have one or multiple of these things. And I love this picture. I generated this picture with artificial intelligence, asking, hey, I need a picture like this where the planet Earth used to be so lush and efficient, in sync with everything. And as humans, we evolved, we made changes and made it more habitable to us, where we are causing more problems. But at the end, so many of us are very peaceful with what we are doing. This picture is a demonstration for me, saying that what it used to be, how is it going right now, and how can we at peace? So this is another picture that helped me a lot to understand different frameworks about life and humans in general. We lost curiosity as we evolved, as we age, as we gained knowledge in specific subjects at a personal and a professional level. Most of the people leave their curiosity. If they say, a kid will ask around 400 questions a day, but compared to adults, we don't even ask 100 questions. We lost that curiosity, and losing that curiosity and nature to ask questions, or hey, what's next, how can I do this better, is one of the main issues. That's why you see on the left there is a framework called 5 W's and H. We always ask what, when, where, how, and why. So asking these curious questions will make sure that we are learning new things. And on the right, you can see Dunning-Kruger effect, because if you're learning a new subject or thinking about doing something new, initially we don't have any knowledge and our confidence will be so high in many human cases. And when we learn that we don't know anything about this, our confidence will drop down, and for some many people stop there because they don't have a community or a group of people that are in the same boat, and as adults we are afraid to agree with that. So I really show this to graph to everybody saying, hey, I was in this position 3 years ago because I'm trying to search for a group that can help me to understand permaculture. I'm new to the US, I'm new to Palm Springs. How can I do this? I was at my low point because I couldn't find any help or resources that can help me. But when I started volunteering at the farmers market and found Haley, learned about compost and learned that, oh, this is what my grandparents used to do in India. And I was with them for 15 years. I know what they are doing, and that my confidence raised slowly. Right now, I'm in this position where I acquired some knowledge and I'm confidently sharing it with everybody. So we have some depressing climate issues. Is permaculture is the solution? Is the only solution? Absolutely not. Permaculture is a framework on which discusses multiple subjects, multiple topics, and we can take what we need. So this is not a one-size-fits solution. Again, we are understanding the principles of permaculture, and we take what we need out of that. And we are not, this permaculture is not only a voodoo science. There are many aspects of permaculture that are based on science and technology, and scientists are actually conducting more experiments on this at a large scale. At a philosophical level, this is working with nature instead of against the nature. And you want to be very thoughtful about your actions, because people end up doing intensive labor when they are achieving little to no result. So thoughtful observation rather than thoughtless labor. For example, in Palm Springs, we have, because of the golf courses, there is excessive Bermuda grass. I wanted to get rid of it in my backyard, even though we don't grow any grass. That was me doing thoughtless labor because I did not factor in the other aspects of how Bermuda grass is coming onto my property. Then when I made the thoughtful observation and learned permaculture, I thought, oh, right now Bermuda grass is not my enemy. I'm going to make it a friend and use it as I need it and see where it fits in my overall picture. So making those thoughtful observations is what permaculture promotes. And looking at nature, animals, macro and microorganisms, and see what they are contributing to the overall ecosystem rather than isolating one thing and focusing on it. So in basic common language, I would say for me, permaculture is taking guidance from the nature and applying the knowledge that our great grandparents or ancestors that shared generationally with all of us. Timeline of permaculture. This was started in Australia back in 1970s. Bill Mollison is considered as the father of permaculture, and his protege or co-founder is David Holmgren, where they did intensive research and published books on permaculture. And in the early 2000s, it got mainstream attention from not only from the scientists, farmers, and anybody who cares about sustainability. Permaculture is based on certain ethics and principles. There are only 3 ethics. The ethics are care for earth, care for people, and fair share. These 3 ethics revolves around 12 principles, and those principles are listed here. I highlighted some of them. Observe and interact, which correlates to doing thoughtful observation rather than thoughtless labor. Obtaining a yield, no matter what we do as humans, we need to take a little bit of the result to our satisfaction before we proceed forward. Apply self-regulation and accept feedback. This is something that is a new thing. Is like, oh, can you give me feedback at my work? Or can you give me feedback for the job I did? That feedback is a new concept in mainstream professional lives. But if you observe the nature, there is always a feedback loop that feeds back into the main action where we adjust according to it. Produce no waste. Waste is a human created thing. In nature, there is no waste. Everything will be recycled, is considered as a resource, and it will be recycled from one form of energy or one form of shape to another form. Nature will integrate things rather than segregating. As humans, we are the ones who segregate. Okay, I have a house. It has to be away from my neighbors and it has to have a wall. We segregate things. The main segregation is how we treat micro and macro organisms. For example, people don't like cockroaches in their houses. People don't like lizards in their houses. Yes, there is some health issue to it, but that segregation is giving us a mindset that we need to segregate every little thing. Any kind of animal, any kind of living organism entering into my house is bad. Even though that is a cultural thing, that segregation is a cultural thing depending on the society we are in, it became an ingrained event where we segregate all kinds of things from our lifestyles. And creatively use and respond to change. If we, with the fast lifestyle we are adapting, we are leading right now, it's hard on us to sit down and observe everything that's going on around us unless we are on a vacation. Obviously, we will be eating or drinking on vacation. So even on vacations, we don't get time to sit down and observe what's happening around us. If we can sit down, just sit down, take a 1 minute break, whether you're meditating or doing yoga, doing exercises. If you slow down and take a look what's happening around you, you will see very tiny changes happening and you can respond to those changes creatively. Here are the basics of permaculture. You want to stack functions and learn the interconnectedness of various things. For example, a basic example of stacking is like you go out for shopping, groceries, and then you fill the gas, and then you go do something else, and then you come home. It's not like we are going to the grocery store, coming back home, and then go to fill up the gas unless it's emergency and necessary. Every day, we are stacking functions and we are interconnecting one action to the another. Permaculture tells the same thing, teaches the same thing. Hey, how many functions can you stack depending on what you are looking for? We need to observe and learn what are the resources that are available around us and how can we make them a friend of ours. Not everything is an enemy in our garden. Example is weeds. People don't like a plant that is in the wrong place in the wrong season. For example, if you're growing onions, a carrot might be a weed in that onion patch and vice versa. So if you find something that is not supposed to be there and you don't want it, rather than calling it the enemy, how can you make it your friend and use it in a different area? Understanding the climate zones, where you are on this planet, and how much of property you have, and do you have any microclimates? USDA has different climate zones depending on where we are, which state you are on. That is a really good start to understand what is our climate zone. Most of the California, I guess, falls under 9A and 9B, and a part of it can go into 10 as well, depending on where we are on. Those climate zones are really useful to understand our seasons, what happens with every month, and how to adapt to that. Weather patterns, whether we are in the desert or in the redwood forest, up north, or we are in Yosemite National Park where we have a lot of snow, or are you in Seattle where there is a lot of rain? So understanding weather patterns is an important thing. Microclimate. This microclimate comes in really handy if you're living right next to huge hillsides, mountains, or you have a lot of forest area around you. These microclimates are really important to understand shade and the importance of shade that plays role for your property or the garden itself if you're in urban settings. Personal preferences. What do you want to grow? What do you want to see on your property? Or what are your family goals? Do you want to have like a fruit orchard, or do you want to have like a market size garden? What are your preference? And the last thing is culturally appropriate choices. Understanding what I need is really important. And at the same time, hey, what is the culture around me and what they need? Again, going back to the ethics, we are not only caring for the earth, we want to care for other people, and we want to share our bounty that we are producing. So what are culturally appropriate choices? For me, okra is a big thing coming from India, but out here, people don't see a lot of okra. For me, melons are not a big thing, but out here, squash and melons are a big thing. So I need to draw a line. Okay, here is my personal preference, and this is what the culture around me need, and this is what the people that I am caring for need. That's 6 and 7. I learned them the hard way because when I came here and I'm talking about some Indian-based vegetables, people have no idea. And at the same time, I don't have any idea about varieties of squashes and beans, all those kind of things. So that was more of a learning curve for anybody understanding personal preferences and culturally appropriate choices. The first thing we want to understand in permaculture is zoning. For example, whether I will differentiate in two ways. It's like if you, for example, you have a 1 acre property or a huge property, or you're living in an urban setting. Zone 0 is always where the people are gathering, whether it can be a house or a office center, or on a property. It is the main structure where people will gather, live there, or work there. So zone 0 is like your ground zero. After that, zone 1 is where you go the most. You go there every day. It can be the front door, you're walking out of your home, or it's the front door where you're entering into an office. So zone 1 is the intensely used area. This zone is really good for establishing kitchen gardens, or having a tiny herb garden or a flower garden that you want to work on a daily basis or on a regular basis and have access to it easily. And zone 2 is going to be perennial plants and small animals, depending on, hey, are you living in an urban setting? Are you living in a rural setting with huge property? Zone 3 is large crops, orchards, or larger livestock, where I don't have to go there every single day. I don't have to tend it, but it's there. I can go once a week or every 10 days and take a look at it and observe what's happening. Even with the larger livestock, you have to go there every day, but if you have enough help, you don't have to tend them every single day. Zone 4 is semi-wild areas where you leave it to the nature a little bit, where you don't interact, where you can see a lot of lizards and snakes living. So it's like a semi-wild area. And last one is zone 5, which is like you leave it to the nature. You don't go and disturb anything. Depending on where you are, you can have a combination of 1 or 2 zones, or have no zones at all. If you're living in an apartment and all you can have is like a bucket with a rosemary and mint plant in it. This zoning right now is taking precedence, especially in California, because of the wildfires we are having. So depending on these zones where the firefighters in many counties are helping the families to clear out large trees so the structure won't get into the fire easily when there is a wildfire happening. And there are other people specifically working on fire mitigation or fire minimizing zoning when they are building the houses. I want to go to the next one. So that is about the zoning. After zoning, hey, what are the elements of permaculture? Let's say I have a property or I'm building a house at the end of Palm Springs and I have the liberty to customize the house. What should I consider when I'm building these things, or I have a property that can put me in this permaculture? Well, the first thing, sun is free and there are renewable energy and sustainable technology that we can use and integrate with our property. For example, if you're solar, out here, everybody have solar. If you're living on a property that's more than 1 acre, you can have a windmill, and that is legal according to the Federal Energy Commission. Biogas, it's when you are off-grid living, you want to minimize your waste and you don't want to haul everything off the property. So biogas is a big thing in off-grid living systems. The second resource that we have is water. How are we managing water? How many times we can recycle water? For recycling, we can do rainwater harvesting, gray water systems where we connect our laundry into our garden, into the lawns, into the orchards, where you can recycle most of the water that you are using inside the house. Or if you have big properties and you're trying to manage water, you can build swales and ponds. The second resource that we have is soil to grow our food. So how are we taking care of that soil? We can do a lot of composting, no-till farming, build soil by mulching it, and building microbial content of the soil, having a lot of amendments. And the fourth one is food forest and polyculture. This one is mainly for feeding ourselves and feeding our communities. Rather than just growing one crop in the same plot, how many crops can we grow? Or how many different varieties can we grow? And the main thing I learned in this aspect, from this element, is that what we see in the grocery store is not all we can eat. For example, I started growing a sweet potato, and out of curiosity, I Googled, okay, is the whole sweet potato is edible? The plant is edible? And I found that sweet potato leaves are actually edible, and I stopped buying salad from the store. Once you start understanding, hey, how many parts of the plants can I eat? Can I eat the flower, root, stem? What can I eat? And have a mental picture of that, mental note of that. It makes it easier how much we can produce out of one plant and how many dishes we can make out of it. Last thing is animals in permaculture. If you are in a rural setting, or you can have animals like chicken, bees, and other livestock, you can include it. But if you are in an urban setting, there are ways how you can include animals in permaculture as well. Talking about renewable energy, I bolded the main thing. If you want to use the renewable energy and take advantage of natural orientation, all you need to do is like orient your structure with the sun path. There are like engineers and architects whose job is to do this. If you say, hey, I want to build a house, but I want it to be as much efficient as possible and use as much as renewable energy that's available for free, they will design it. It's not like a cookie cutter model. You can, not all the houses will be facing in one direction. Like if you go into a neighborhood right now, all of them have the same front door. They are facing the same or the opposite direction. But if you want to use permaculture principle like this, every house will be a little bit differently oriented. And that is a major issue in urban settings. After that, you want to use solar, geothermal, wind for energy production, especially when you are living in the desert. Solar is a really good option. If you're living in snowy areas, Geothermal can be a really good option, and people don't realize what is a geothermal energy. You are actually inserting pipes into the ground, into the earth, and those pipes will be connected to your energy system, where the pipes will be moving heat and cool the system, your HVAC system, pulling the heat from the ground. Rocket stoves and efficient heating system. The basic version of being energy efficient is, if you look at YouTube videos, they can build rocket stoves. Some of them can be wood burning, but you can burn the wood, minimizing the carbon emissions. Not all wood burnings are same. You can still use wood as your major energy source and reduce how much of carbon dioxide is it generating, so to make it more efficient, and you can use the technology to heat heat your space. Natural materials for building. Bamboo is taking precedence. Hemp is taking the front seat in natural building materials. Growing up in India, we never had cement back in my village. All we used is like a little bit of bricks and a lot of clay and mud and animal manure that mixed to make stronger structures using straw bales. Finally, this is all for like rural settings and you want to build your home. But if you are in an urban setting and you want to make your home efficient as possible, you can look into something called passive homes, where they make sure they are making, you can retrofit your existing home into a passive home if you want to. That will reduce the energy usage and help you with saving a ton of money in the form of energy bills. The second one is water harvesting and management. Whenever there is water, free water, especially in the form of rain, you want to slow it down. If the water is falling from the sky, you just don't want to leave your property right away as soon as it hits the ground. No, you want to slow the flow, spread it as much as possible onto your property and sink it so it can replenish your groundwater rather than going into the drainage system that is given by the city or the water agencies locally. Other ways to harvest water is rainwater collection. Depending on where you are, if you have heavy rains, you can have huge tanks underground or on top of your structure so that you can collect rainwater. Where I am right now in the desert, rainwater collection for me is having a rain gutter throughout my property for the structure and make sure that water is draining slowly into my garden area. For inside the home, we can have something called gray water system. According to the California Plumbing Code, rainwater collection and gray water systems are completely legal. If you contact your water agencies, local water agency, some of them might say no, they are not legal, but they're completely legal. Gray water system is basically where you attach a pipe to your laundry unit and you drain that water into your garden. There is a proper way to do it where the water should not touch the soil on the top. So you can do it in a way where it's not coming to the surface. You can do the same thing with your bathroom water, but you have to go through a little bit of extra step. When you're converting this laundry into a gray water system, all you need to change is your laundry detergent. There are brands like Oasis, Ecos, Trader Joe's, their regular brand, those detergents are safe for gray water system. When you are using bleach, you can send that water into the sewer system, but other than that, that gray water can be repurposed on your property. If you're living in like rural areas where you have a huge property, you can dig for swales and ponds that will work as rainwater collection systems where you can repurpose them. The other interesting thing I found is like natural pools. Out here in California, mostly everybody will have a swimming pool that is with either chlorine or salt. but there is a way to convert your chlorine or salted swimming pool into a natural swimming pool by using aquatic plants and animals. So those aquatic plants and animals are connected to your main swimming pool. They are not in your main swimming pool, but they will be connected to your main swimming pool. Those plants and animals act as a filtration system that will filter your water, so we don't have to use either salt or chlorine, which is good for planet, good for our skin. Hydroloops in Sweden and New Zealand, they came up with this technology, which is a combination of gray water system and rainwater collection system for recycling the water inside the house. Just like our electrical system, these hydro loops are integrated with the construction of the house. So you don't see it as a filtration system in the garage or filtration system in the basement. No, they are actually integrated with the construction of the house, which is really cool to see. But that hydro loop system is still in a lot of development phases because they're having some issues and they haven't came to the US market yet. Next element we want to manage is soil fertility, and how to manage it. Well, Desert Compost made it happen, where they're teaching everybody out here in Coachella Valley and Inland Empire region by teaching them how to compost our food scraps and turn it into composting. If you don't want to do traditional composting, or you have like a small area, hugelculture beds is a very famous one, where you start piling up material like big logs. If you have cut down, you have to chop down a tree, you don't want to chip it, or you don't want to take on that project, you can start piling them up and you can layer them with the different material that is available locally to you, and you can plant directly into it. Sheet composting is another technique the same way, but with sheet composting, you're using only food scraps and a carbon source such as like tree trimmings. But with hugelculture beds, you are using huge tree stumps. For people in very urban settings and specifically vegetarians or vegans, vermicomposting is an alternative option where you don't have to handle huge composting pile or anything. All you need to have is a plastic container with a bunch of earthworms in it, who will do the composting for you. Food forest and polyculture. Guilds. In this food forest and polyculture, no matter whether you are doing the gardening in your backyard, or you have 100-acre property or 1-acre property, whatever the size it might be, you want to follow this guild where you will have your anchor plant, which is your main tree or main plant, and you want to plant some other things that can support the whole system. For example, you can have nitrogen fixers, which can be legumes and beans, which will release nitrogen. So this anchor, for example, if I have an apple tree, I can add some nitrogen fixers to it, where these legumes and beans are providing enough nitrogen, releasing nitrogen for the apple tree. And at the same time, I'm getting some beans and legumes to eat. You can have dynamic accumulators that can go if you have compacted soil. Radish is a very useful dynamic accumulator because it grows longer. It can break the compacted soil, and that breaking will bring more nutrients to the soil, top layer of the soil, so the main plant and main crop can use it. Obviously, we are very familiar with the pollinators. All the flowers we see are pollinators. Most of the time, a pollinator can also act as a pest repellent. Pest repellents are mainly herbs that will deter the unwanted pests in the garden. But these guys can be interchanged. A pollinator can also work as a pest repellent. A pollinator can also work as a ground cover. As most of the humans, soil doesn't want to be naked. Soil doesn't want to be exposed to elements all the time, because in summer, you want to keep the soil cooler. That's why you want to have a ground cover. And in winter, you want to keep the soil warmer so the roots won't freeze and die. That's why you need a ground cover, so it can be kept warm during winter seasons. Mulch producers, again, all of these support systems are mulch producers, which means You can chop them and you can drop them right over there, and they act as a ground cover. They produce enough nitrogen. So this is called a guild system, which can be used from like a small container, if you have that only plastic black container, to establishing an orchard. Animals in permaculture. The main animals people use in permaculture, the way they talk about animals is like, hey, you don't have some problem, you have some deficiency. For example, if you have slugs problem in your garden, can you get a chicken or a duck that can eat these slugs or can eat these organisms? Like, you don't have a pest problem, you have a bird deficiency. So that's how you want to look at things and include animals in your permaculture settings. If you cannot add chickens or ducks or geese, most of the people go with the rabbits because they can repurpose the rabbit poop and use the rabbit as a meat source. Same with the quails. The quails won't make much noise as chicken or ducks, but they're very quiet and you can use them for eggs and meat at the same time. What are some of the challenges that permaculture is facing? Because there are no standard rules and regulations how to use permaculture, everybody's journey is different and everybody says, this worked for me, this did not work for me. The main challenge is there is a lot of information because every 10 miles or 5 miles you travel, or if you go from your house to your neighbor's house, their scenario is different. Their needs are different. Their challenges are different. So there is a huge Wikipedia of a lot of information and opportunities. And people, when they were introduced to permaculture, they are overwhelmed with like, there is a lot to do. Why am I not doing all of this? How can I do all of this? So that is creating this overwhelming situation where people are like, where should I start? They don't know. The next thing is like scalability and acceptance in mainstream agriculture. Like, okay, Prema, you're talking about your backyard or a community garden or a acre property with a lot of manual labor, but can we replace monoculture cropping using permaculture principles? How can we adapt it? Well, there is already there. If you watch the Kiss the Ground documentary, and number 1 and number 2, you can see how permaculture principles are being used in mainstream monoculture agriculture and how they are changing their style of doing the agriculture in like a, how do you say, thousands of acres of situations. The last thing is critics questions its effectiveness in large-scale application, promoting ongoing dialogue and adaptation. This is really good because when critics are questioning and making critic reviews, permaculturists see, hey, that is not just them saying it's a no-no. They have some questions about it. We need to sit down, listen to them, and help them to understand what needs to be done and how can they change their thinking. Because most of this is mindset. We need to change our mindset and understand how nature works. And for critics, it's really hard because they have a rule book for everything. And for them, it's really challenging. How can you get started with permaculture? Well, you can start today by saying waste to a different thing that's easier on you. It's the mindset change. If you look at a paper bag and you say, okay, this is waste, this needs to go into trash container, that's where you can start. You can say, hey, well, people consider this as a waste, but can this be a resource where I can repurpose it, reuse it, or give it back to the soil? That's where we all can start if we haven't started. Know your eco superpower. I added this to the resource slide next. I will talk about this more. You can start by growing something, whether it's an indoor plant or an outdoor plant or a full-size garden, or going and volunteering at other community gardens or community composting sites. You can participate in this and contribute what you can do with your time and professional lifestyle choices. You can compost at your home or donate to materials to the people that are composting and help them through volunteering or donating some money to them. Because right now, composting become a big thing where it is creating enormous amount of jobs in our communities. Grow something and be curious all the time. Keep learning, ask questions. Why should I do it this way? Why can't I do it the other way? Because I remember my great grandmother doing it this way. So can we try it a different way? Keep learning, ask questions, and educate others of the knowledge that you have. These are some of the examples. If you guys are in Southern California, specifically in Inland Empire, at Cal Poly Pomona, there is this 17-acre property called Lyell Center for Regenerative Studies. This is the aerial view, and it is a living laboratory. Each structure is oriented with the sun, have water features, all the things we talk in permaculture. This is a living example where you can just take your car, take a day trip and go walk around, and you will see geese, some chicken, like enormous amounts of fruits. And every building has an explanation why they did it that way. And they're offering a master's level degree in this regenerative studies. This is an example from my journey with permaculture. Like, I wanted to find resources that are available to me. This cardboard over here is all from Costco. I use a lot of cardboard. And these are mushroom blocks. There is a really good mushroom farm out here. Their waste is a resource for me. They throw these mushroom blocks in the trash. They have to haul it to the landfill. But I said, hey, I can use them, and I use it in my compost. I use it in my garden. The last thing is I used to collect a lot of food scraps from Whole Foods because it's cleaner over there. And I used to get all those food scraps from local grocery stores, juice stores, and compost them in my backyard to build my soil. And this is what happened. This is my front yard on the left when 2020, beginning mid 2022. And all I did is like layer the cardboard and fill it with mulch. And right side picture is the difference you can see. And this is my backyard. This is how it used to be. Bermuda grass is growing wherever there is water, and it's compacted dirt. Really, really compacted dirt. I did the same thing, layer it with cardboard and put like 6-inch mulch, and I keep replenishing the mulch, where right now I have a really good formation of soil. And with the grant I received through Desert Compost, I am turning this whole backyard into an urban farm where we are planting a lot of trees and have raised beds so we can do some farming. The final one is resources that are available for all of us, whether you are in Southern California, Inland Empire region, or somewhere else. One green thing is a website where you can go and take a 20-question survey that will tell you, hey, what is our eco superpower? Are you a person who loves to do advocacy, or who loves to go and talk to the authority, like your city meetings, or you're a person, you're a go-getter where you can go and do something and teach people how to do. So if you're struggling where to start your journey, you can take that survey and it will help you to understand what are your traits and how you can start. This permaculture design course is specifically for Coachella Valley. There is this organization that is providing free permaculture classes that you can take. If you're not local, this Andrew Millicent's classes on YouTube are really useful. As we talked about the orientation of the sun and your structure, people still have some struggle understanding the sun path and how you need to plant your garden or how you need to establish your structure so it's aligning with the sun. Number 4 and 5 are for understanding that sun path. Number 6 and 7, if you're not local to Inland Empire, if you're local to Inland Empire, there are many community composting sites that are available. You can go donate your food scraps, volunteer with them, and learn how to compost. If you're not in Inland Empire region, you can find out local community composting sites, or these 2 websites are really good where On the map, you can see who is composting in your neighborhood, who is composting in your vicinity, and they will say, hey, I can accept this kind of material. So you can go and donate your material to them through this through these apps. And the last one is chip drop. We all see tree trimming companies trimming a lot of trees, and that is main source, carbon source that you can use in your garden. If you have like a bigger property, or if you talk to your neighbor, you can get a truckload of chips and you can distribute with your friends and peers. This is a small list of resources that we can use and learn a lot about permaculture. I guess that is my presentation, and I'm open for questions. Let me go back and come to Zoom. Haley, can I stop sharing, or do you want recording, or do you want me to keep recording the questions as well?
We can stop the recording, Prema.
Okay.
Thanks.
Please recording.